Okay, welcome back. 26 minutes past 9. It's a story I remember well. It was a story I covered at the time. It's 18 years ago this month. The murder of Dolores McRae of Lahey in County Donegal. She was just 39 years of age. Her husband later found guilty of her murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. The end of quite a terrible ordeal for her family.
My family and I are relieved that the trial has come to an end and the jury has returned with a guilty verdict and that justice has been done. My mother was a wonderful mother, daughter, sister and friend to us all, and she will never be forgotten. We want to thank the local people of Ballintra and Donegal who've been there for us since Mum's death.
Well, the name of Dolores McRae was one of those mentioned by Fine Gael TD Jennifer Carl McNeil in the Dáil this week during the discussion on the Aisling Murphy murder. The names of 21 women in all who were all murdered during the month of January alone in the past 20 years were read out.
A few names that should be remembered this month: Joyce Quinn, Miriam O'Donoghue, Mandy Smith, Grania Dillon, Jean Scanlon, Mary Bridgman, Dolores McRae, Amy Farrell, Rebecca Kinsella, Mario Rostas, Anne Corcoran, Lorena Prickagen, Breda Waters, Veronica Volrath, Ruda Mauer, Jane Braidwood, Jasmine McGonigal, Elzbieta Peritroska, Aransitsa Sarindorj, Sharon Bennett and Aisling Murphy.
Deputy Carl McNeil, good morning. You're welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me.
What was the purpose of reading out the names? Tell us how important it was.
I think it was important to reflect that what happened with Aisling Murphy was deeply tragic, and hundreds of thousands of people have come out to express their opposition to what happened to her. But I think what they're also expressing is their opposition to violence against women. And it isn't just Aisling Murphy. This is something that has touched every community in Ireland. There are so many families without a woman who had died at the hands of a man, needlessly, violently, abusively. And what I wanted to do was reflect that this is a pattern that has persisted these past 25, 27 years when we've been collecting data in this way. My data is from Women's Aid. And to really mark that and to reflect that into the record of the Dáil, and to do that in a consistent way each month, or as I can get the opportunities in the Dáil to do so, to read their names in, so that the sentiment and the emotion and the strength of feeling that everybody has expressed over the past 10 days since Aisling died doesn't go away, as the news cycle changes, that we maintain the momentum, that we maintain the focus on the violence against women right throughout the year. And for me, I suppose I was thinking this is a way of reflecting all of the hurt that other communities have gone through, but also keeping it on the agenda, and most importantly on our national, the record of our national parliament.
Yeah, because unfortunately, despite all the discussion and debate and outrage and anger and shock over Aisling Murphy's murder, it will become non-front page news very quickly. So we should remember, as you say, all those have gone before.
Exactly, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I've no doubt that, yesterday, I put I'm doing it on Instagram as well, the anniversaries of the different women. So, so yesterday there was, or in the last 2 days, Dolores McRae, Amy Farrell, Jane Braidwood, to try to use the different platforms that I can to mark and remember, because I have no doubt that for every single day for the past 18 years has been incredibly difficult for Dolores' 4 daughters, her wider family, and I'm sure that must be heightened around her anniversary. But the rest of the country moves on with its lives. Of course it does, but the persistent violence against women doesn't go away. And I think one of the things that was being expressed by people all around the country, and in particular women, was that it happens, it continues to happen, and they continue to be fearful of it, as they should, as they are. They live their lives that way. They adapt their lives to try to protect themselves, protect their friends, their sisters, their daughters. And it's something that I fear could fall too easily off the news agenda, and so I'm trying to find other ways to try to keep the momentum on, really achieving a cultural change that gets rid of the misogyny that allows violence against women, only by the tiny number of people that perpetrate it, but for women, they don't know who those are and who they aren't, and we have to change the culture really entirely. The Taoiseach was very strong about that in the Dáil this week, about getting rid of that misogynistic undertone that has been there. I know there's a suite of legislation in respect of sexual offences, making it easier for victims going through the court process. introducing new offences like non-fatal strangulation, stalking, all of this to try to amplify what we're saying, which is that violence against women is just utterly unacceptable. And I suppose in reading out the names, in persisting with the names, it's to try to remember them, but also to keep this in people's minds that this is something that requires broad change, not just a short outpouring of grief and a few, headlines for a week or so.
And the misogyny you talk about is sometimes there in a very understated or tacit way. It's time for re-examination of everybody's attitudes, which impact directly on cases, unfortunately, like Ashling Murphy. And as you say, you rightly say, and there were some poignant and emotional contributions during the debate during the week. Women are forced to live their lives differently because of this threat which hangs over them all the time.
It's true, and every woman listening to this, to us talking this morning, is aware of that and aware of the adaptations that they make both consciously and unconsciously. I thought what was really heartening this in the Dáil contributions was, listening to Gary Gannon and Cathal Crowe from the Social Democrats and from Fianna Fáil. They were just two I heard that really reflected on their experience as men listening to this, and Cathal saying how he didn't really understand it. How different his wife's life is to his, and the changes that she has to make getting in and out of the car in the car park. That's something that she thinks about, whereas it's just something he, never needs to give thought to. And it was so heartening, to hear that reflected back, that people really are thinking about it, that men really are reflecting and going, I just didn't know, or I just wasn't aware, because why would they be? Why, that's not what they're living through. That's not, it's not a criticism to identify that there's something that you weren't aware of before. That's not a problem. The challenge now for everybody is to be aware that while you might be walking down the street without a thought in the world, the woman who's walking ahead of you or sidestepping you or coming towards you might not have, might have, worries about that, might be thinking about her safety that night, might have had a difficult experience 5 minutes before walking past a group of guys or something like that. And I think it's to be sensitive to that and to be aware of that in the first instance. And those are the sorts of changes that, if they're made by everybody, can really affect a cumulative, collective cultural change that can make a difference.
Many thanks for joining us this morning, Deputy Jennifer Carl McNeil. This person says, it's like everything, unfortunately, on for her family. If anyone cares, they need to watch out for each other and reach out to any woman or man that they know is going through domestic violence. And then on a more personal level, someone else says, I'm really impressed on how articulate Jennifer is on your show this morning. Wish we had a TD of her calibre here in the Northwest. 071 911 8104 is our number.